Hey folks, my name is Theodore Abbott. I'm the news editor for the Capilano Courier, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some upcoming articles we have in the October issue. First up, we have some news from the world of AI. We're doing an AI slop column right now, and this month's article was called Hallucinations. This is all about how AIs and large language models, or LLMs, have been recently producing fabricated material or fabricated content and presenting it as factual. In the world of AI, they've begun referring to these as AI hallucinations. In this article, we talked about how ChatGPT being used in the courtroom by lawyers and doctors using an AI called Whisper, which uses AI to transcribe doctor-patient interactions. The long and short of this article is that it's making certain professions using those LLMs very precarious. That's AI slop hallucinations. It covers a lot of ground and focuses on a really bizarre phenomenon within the world of AI. Okay, next on the docket is CapU's new safety app called CapU Safe Alert. Not to be confused with CapU's old safety app. This is a new app. It is all about empowering students to kind of participate in safety within the campus community. It allows people with specific accessibility needs or folks who might be in like a specific category, say they're hard of seeing or hard of hearing, and get updates from the university specific just to them. In this article, one of our editor-in-chiefs, Laura Morales, sat down with two of the head honchos of safety at CapU, and they had some main takeaways for students. The first of which just being to download the app, tell your friends to download the app, and if there is any emergency on campus, call 911 first. And then if there are safety concerns, these are things that can be reported through the app. Basically just optimizing and streamlining what the university already does, but it's centralizing that within one focused app. Get on there, get on CapU Safe Alert. Sounds like a great app. Okay, so this next article that we're talking about is called Youth Drug Use in Vancouver. Now, this is a pretty underreported topic, and we're really interested in sitting down with someone who's immersed in that world and getting sort of their perspective on what's going on in Vancouver with youth who are using drugs. Jasmine, our managing editor, sat down with a fellow named Jesse Gottfried, who works as a youth frontline worker in the downtown east side and works in harm reduction. It does a great job in just sort of illuminating an otherwise sort of occluded world, a world that sort of is often in the shadows. We don't talk about youth drug use. This article digs into kind of a prickly area in terms of the rollout of harm reduction and the rollout of safe supply, which has actually been sort of scaled back in the last year because safe supply, when it was launched, was originally meant to be in tandem with other supporting pillars. So it wasn't just supposed to be safe supply, singular, this will solve the problem. A multi-pronged approach, as they sometimes call it. One of those pillars, for example, would be like adequate housing, affordable shelter rate housing. But a lot of those other pillars actually were never delivered upon. With these new funding cuts that we're seeing to harm reduction programs and various sort of like frontline support programs on the downtown east side and throughout the city, those cuts are opening up certain gaps. And with vulnerable groups like youth or seniors, those are always the demographics end up falling through those gaps and falling through the cracks. And that's exactly what's happening with youth right now in Vancouver. This is some pretty lofty subject matter, but I think it does a really great job in sort of threading that needle and sort of temperature check on what the world of youth drug use is like in Vancouver right now. Go check it out. It's a fantastic article, and I think anyone would probably learn a lot from reading it. Another article in sort of a long line of publications and dedications to this topic of the international student tuition increase and also the cap on international students allowed into the country. And it delves into some very dense subject matter in terms of the actual history of how and why international students pay almost 6 times the amount of domestic students. There once was a time in the 80s when domestic fees and international fees were on par. But because of austerity budgeting, funding cuts, international students and their fees that they pay we have sort of made up for that lack of funding and have been sometimes referred to as the cash cow that post-secondary institutions turn to make up for that funding. And not only is the government at fault, but also universities, hence the article's title, Fail to Plan, Plan to Fail. How they failed to do so in terms of ever considering a time when there wouldn't be just like exponential growth, or when there wouldn't be a time when federal policy around immigration would change. Now that the number of visas that are being distributed has gone down so drastically, these institutions are having to completely reorganize and restructure. They're having to cut programs. They're doing austerity budgeting. They're doing the exact same thing that the government was originally doing in the 80s and 90s that resulted in them having to lean on international students so much. So it's a bit ironic. Here at CapU, they have a projected deficit budget for the next operating year. We're sort of in unprecedented ground, right? This article delves into how that all came to be, the history of what happened and what's going on right now, currently. Okay, now for a little update from the world of the CSU, the Capilano Students Union, which is your student union, so you should pay attention to what's going on. After a very engaged meeting on Friday, August 15th, 2025, Committee of Advocacy and Campaigns failed to reach quorum at the following meeting on September 19th, which was a shame because they sounded like they had some pretty interesting stuff to discuss. One agenda item was planning a public transit listening campaign, as well as planning an international student tuition campaign. In terms of those two agenda items, both of these issues will have to wait, hopefully not for another month, to be discussed and for further action to take place on those agenda items. So some more news from the CSU is the seat of the VP remains vacant. So unofficially, the reason for the vacant seat has to do with academic requirements in terms of GPA, but we don't know. It's likely that is the reason. I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Like, what do you think? Like, should students be allowed to be elected as student representatives if their GPA is below a certain threshold? Or do you think it's irrelevant? Their ability to perform well as a student representative has no bearing on their GPA, and that those two things are not dependent. So with that in mind, and the recommendations of the governance committee, a motion to amend the bylaws to restrain the academic standing requirements was put forward on August 29th. Surprisingly, though, that motion was defeated. So once again, though, another motion is going to be brought forward this Friday, September 26th, and they're going to be voting on this. So, I mean, what do you think about this? It's an interesting question, right? Should students be allowed to run with whatever GPA, whether it's above or below 2.0? Does one's GPA have any bearing on their ability to be an elected student official? Yeah, let us know. I mean, this is an interesting subject. We're going to be continuing to cover this issue going forward, so stay tuned. Yeah, so there it is. That's our October update for the fear issue of the Courier. Those are your news articles. It's also a little update from the world of the CSU. Also our zine, the CC Crumb comes out about mid-month, so check that out. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you have ideas for articles you want to pitch, if you want to write an article, reach out, shoot us a message, come drop by the Courier office. We're here up on the CapU campus in North Van. So yeah, thanks so much. My name is Theodore Abbott, and I'll talk to you next month.